Ghost Palace. A reality located in the center of Cairo, the capital of Egypt. At first glance, when you see a picture of this palace, you think that it was written by one of the directors of horror films. To make his film more frightening and mysterious, because signs of terror are visible in every corner of the building, whether from the outside to everyone who sees it from outside its walls, and even from the inside. You cannot control your heart not to. It trembles when you pass through its middle and through its floors and corridors, as if the one who built it had deliberately spread fear in the heart of everyone who sees it or enters it, even though it is contrary to the reality of the one who built it. He wanted to make it a beautiful architectural masterpiece and enjoyable for those who see it, but the palace refused to show anything other than what its frightening reality might contain. The truth revealed by the future is more frightening and mysterious than the most terrifying films that spread fear, terror, and mystery. So that our conversation does not take longer, let us hear the story from the beginning. At the end of the 19th century, specifically several years after the opening of the Suez Canal in Egypt, a large ship coming from India docked on the shore of the canal. And on board this ship was a Belgian millionaire named Edouard EMPAIN. Edouard EMPAIN held the title of Baron, and it was granted to him by the King of France in recognition of his efforts in establishing the Paris Metro, as EMPAIN was a distinguished engineer. Just as Edouard EMPAIN was a brilliant engineer, he also had a strong economic mind. He returned to his country and established several projects that brought him a lot of money. And at the head of those projects was the Bank of Brussels in Belgium. Edouard EMPAIN's only hobby was not collecting money. He loved traveling constantly. So he set out with his countless money to most countries in the world. He flew to Mexico, and from there to Brazil, and from South America to Africa, where he established many projects in the Congo and achieved huge wealth from the heart of the continent. The brunette headed east to the land of magic and beauty, India. Belgian millionaire and fell in love with the East. Edouard EMPAIN lived for many years in India and loved ancient myths until he decided to search for an older historical place and found nothing in front of him except the cradle of ancient civilizations, Egypt. Baron EMPAIN arrived in Cairo, and only a few days passed before the arrow of love shot into the heart of the Belgian millionaire. The man fell in love with Egypt to the point of madness and made a fateful decision to remain in Egypt until his death. He wrote in his will that he would be buried in the soil of Egypt even if he died outside of it. It was natural for the one who made such a decision to search for a permanent residence in the place where he fell to his death. The first strange thing was that Baron EMPAIN chose a place in the desert near Cairo. But it was far from urbanization and far from people. But he convinced all those who wondered and wondered about the reason for the strange choice of this place, which is that it is adjacent to Cairo, and that the place enjoys a clear atmosphere and pure air. Certainly no one at this time saw what the Belgian economist saw, and did not know what was going on inside his head about the future. Once the Belgian millionaire chose the place where he would live, which was the desert road east of Cairo, Baron EMPAIN began studying the architectural style that would build his house in Cairo. And because the Baron was also interested in the art of architecture, made the decision to build a palace that's unparalleled in the whole world. But choosing the architectural style remained a problem that troubled the Baron until he found what he was looking for inside one of the art exhibitions in the French capital. In this exhibition, his eyes fell on a design for an extremely magnificent palace, created by a French artist named Alexandre Marcel. The design was very strange and mysterious. It was a mixture between European architecture and art, Indian architecture. The Baron remembered that during his stay in India, when he suffered from a severe illness that almost claimed his life, the Indians took care of him, took care of his health, and saved him from certain death. Baron EMPAIN remembered the decision he made in those days, after his recovery, to build the first of his new palaces in the Indian style, out of gratitude to the people of this country. Baron Edouard EMPAIN did not hesitate. He bought the design from Marcel and returned it to Cairo. He handed the design over to a number of Italian and Belgian engineers to begin building the palace on the high hill that the Baron had specified for them in the Cairo desert.
5 years later, the architectural masterpiece emerged from the depths of the desert. The Baron Palace, as the Egyptians call it. A luxurious palace whose balconies are decorated with marble statues in the shape of elephants. It has a tower that rotates on a movable base. A full revolution every hour to allow the person sitting in it to see what is around it in all directions. The palace consists of 2 floors and a small annex near it, topped by a large dome. On the walls of the palace, there are wonderful marble statues of dancers from India. Elephants to raise windows studded with small pieces of Belgian glass. Knights carrying swords and mythical animals leaning on the walls of the palace. What is noteworthy is that the palace was created so that the sun does not set on it. However, your body cannot help but tremble. There is something mysterious about the palace that cannot be described. You can only feel it. You feel a cold shiver that takes over your body and a desire to leave this place quickly. Even though it is an architectural masterpiece that is unparalleled in the whole world. This feeling was heightened by the rumors circulating about him about mysterious and suspicious events that have been attached to his name to this day. Most of the rumors that made the Baron's palace a real house of horror revolve around hearing sounds of moving the foundation of the palace between its various rooms in the middle of the night, and the lights that suddenly turn on in the back courtyard of the palace, and suddenly go out as well. The degree of belief of the residents neighboring the palace reaches a great extent as the doorman of one of the buildings facing the palace declares that ghosts do not exist. She appears in the palace only at night, and she does not give anyone the opportunity to remain inside the palace, no matter the cost. He continues, saying that what is said about the existence of ghosts is true. And this is confirmed by what happened in 1982, when many passers-by saw flying smoke coming out of the main palace room. Then this smoke returned and entered again into the window of the main tower of the palace, after which the glow of fire appeared and soon went out on its own, without anyone working to turn it off. This fear remains present to everyone who has heard about the Baron's palace and the rumors that spread around it. Why this particular building? Perhaps the Baron's miserable life was one of the most important reasons that increased the stories of souls that people have been circulating for 100 years. Baron EMPAIN was born with a visible limp in his feet, in addition to being a patient with epilepsy. And he often had epileptic seizures. He would fall in the garden of his palace while the sun would shine on him. And his dog would stand by him until he woke up. Due to the Baron's extreme strictness, none of the servants could approach him without his order, even if he lying on the ground unconscious. But this concerns the Baron, so what about the palace? The reason for the mystery surrounding the house is that there is a room in the palace that Baron EMPAIN has prohibited entry to even his daughter and sister, Baroness Helena. It is the pink room in the basement of the palace. This room opens its doors to the entrance to a long crypt that the Baron built and extends underground under the palace, reaching the Basilica Church, which the Baron commissioned, to be buried there after his death, which is what happened. And he was actually buried there. The walls of this pink room, decorated with mirrors, became stained with blood after the Baron's death, as if a terrifying and unexplained curse had descended upon the place. One of the reasons that led to an increase in the mystery was the killing of the Baron's sister, Baroness Helena, after she fell from the balcony of her inner room, while the Baron was rotating the palace tower towards the south. The base stopped rotating at that moment after the Baron came to hear his sister's screams. This was the first spark of ghost stories that came out of the Baron's sister's room for his personal room. This is what made popular stories indicate that the spirit of Baroness Helena was displeased with the Baron's delay in rescuing her, which disrupted the rotating gears of the revolving tower, which did not turn from that time until the death of the Baron himself in 1928, especially since the sounds of screaming and fighting come out of the palace at night, as the guards of the neighboring properties confirm that they hear the sounds of screaming at night, believing that that sound is the voice of the Baron himself and his sister, who died in the palace 100 years ago. In this video only, and on our channel, Sinbad Speaks channel, we will not be satisfied with just presenting the topic, but we will reveal and explain this mystery, because it is simply in Egypt, far from the circles of the official councils and outside the official press reports. So everyone knows the truth, although there is no clear evidence of the true explanation. It remains a fact that everyone who got to know the Baron and this palace is certain of the Baron had his own bedroom, which was forbidden to anyone from entering. He practiced magical rituals in it, which was the cause of all the phenomena and curses associated with the palace. Yes, Baron EMPAIN follows one of the methods that practice black magic, and he chose the place that suits that and built it in a way that suits that and designed it from the outside and inside to be a helpful factor in creating an atmosphere conducive for him to practice the types of black magic. However, the consequences of this type of magic cannot be controlled, no matter how skilled you are. Evil forces do not allow anyone to be in control of anything. He was harmed and suffered from epilepsy, which has no cure. He even ordered the servants not to try to help him if he became afflicted with epilepsy. The place was afflicted with a curse, as were all the residents there. especially the place that was a special room for practicing rituals and bloodshed to conjure certain types of demons to use their services. And the curse, after the place was imbued with so many curses, it became silent and settled in it. Everyone who approaches it or sees it feels this. Despite all the beautiful words that are said about the splendor of the building and the beauty of the design, attempts did not stop for foreign and Arab artistic production companies to offer huge sums of money to enter it and film some scenes of their films inside. What is most interesting is that most of what foreign companies requested to be filmed inside the palace were horror scenes from films very similar to Count Dracula and the Vampire, which indicates that the story of the Palace of Horror was not limited to Egyptians only, but rather extended to the entire world. The last thing I say to my channel friends: the beautiful place is not the place with a unique architectural building with a sophisticated design, but the beautiful place is the place where your soul rests before your body. Even if it is just one room, it will be your private palace to which you fly yourself if you want relaxation and comfort, and which you will choose, no matter what is offered to you to spend your vacation. In a luxurious place like the Baron's Palace,